Okay, we'll start with the prayers. There's copies on the end of each row for everyone in the row. We begin by acknowledging the Wajik people, traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples everywhere. So when we do the Long Mandala offering on page 6.
Rinpoche, Lambo Rinpoche, Ancho Rinpoche, Magen Rinpoche, Techen Baye and then Lama Dagi Chushi Yewa Zala Rola Benji Sanji Jubara Shu Chudan Soju Jongla Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyabsun Dagi Chushe Jeba Zadaki Rola Benji Sanji Jubara Shu Namo Lai Kedalo Nuzi Chukondala Mi Kenunda Kunji Tanu Chitunga Tamsi Kedu Dagi Chuten So Kangi Suzini Zone Tawa Tamsi Pambi Sere Tambi Shunu Tensa Kodam Dela Chance Lo
Sorry, Geshe. Yeah. So just a brief interlude. So yeah, it's very delighted to have Geshe all the way from sunny Queensland. So yeah, thanks so much for making the trip out. And it's actually Geshe's time off. He has so precious little time, and he chose to teach. This is how Geshe indicated this is best use of his time. So we're so fortunate for us. So yeah, thank you so much again, Geshe, and thanks for everyone for making it out on a school night. It's tough. So yeah, welcome everyone as well. Yeah. Okay.
Kendozila Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay. Ingo de legana. O konde de legana so konde se gere. Wazo yuri.
And Tanzanga get down the precautions, in Tapane, sending to Jichis should be as well.
I just want to say I was really delighted to receive your invitation to come here and to teach. And honestly, from my heart, I just want to say thank you. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity.
Ginzen Karesana, Dangi Nachunju Kone, Nambasanji Churjang, Tenaniji, Tewachimbi Churjang. The Tewachimbi Churjang, Gudung Soro, the Taki, Tapati shooting use roti, only Chagios, Tewachimbi Churjang, Gudundi, Shanla Pentochi address. Ra, Shanla Pentochi address. The Shanla Pentochi area, and you Susu Chikbujiki, Shanla Pentochi to a Kabu Berandas, Ramanzo, Chutamji Dun the Trubare, then the Trubares, Love Nanshingi, Manzu Pentochi area, Pentochi Sada, Pentochi, Nigu Muni, Niga Jingzomatana, anything number Sanji which you told Pentochi, Tashi scheme and Astra. Tinza, Naramazino, Janshawa tea. Any Janzungan to skate and Nandelion Kanji, Narakan Janshawa thing is somewhat Namdaki, Shea Kokoraya Tita, Ning is Samdana, Hajan Kawasam Buddha, Tutu Sambuchili and Sigius Ra.
Why is it that I can say to you with all sincerity that from the depths of my heart, thank you for this invitation? It's because from a young age in this life, I've been studying the teachings of the Buddha Dharma, and the Mahayana Dharma, as you know, has as its objective or has as its very purpose to bring benefit to beings. And if one is focused on fulfilling or attaining primarily one's own benefits, the truth is, it's very difficult to do so. But by interacting with others with a sincere wish to bring benefit, not only does one bring some benefit to others, but one really does achieve benefit for oneself. And amongst the various ways in our world that we can bring benefits to beings, by far the very best, the supreme, is the sharing of the Buddha Dharma. So therefore, your invitation for me to travel here and to share the Dharma gives me great joy, because I have now the opportunity to bring benefit to you, and thereby, as a side effect, to myself as well. And therefore, of the various ways that one can spend one's time, how I can spend my time, the very best is to share the Dharma with others. That's all.
아니 삼번남다게 소소 관심 받디 아니 멜레시에 고야디 신도는 개점 붙여야 해서라 소소 삼번남다게 시야봐요 멜레 팽팽팽겨야 해서라 나는 이게 벤슨 춘중직 시야봐요 단단한 콘세 나 대사직 다리지어라 아니 디 에벤비가 my room and konzugi jindadi kambadi jindadira pavadi ko religion di Catholic resha amadi Muslim resha family ra ta konzunga turonga tuni 니 인지도 야고 신기요 말데 간지 니 가주 투도 있고 어딘가 깨지 몸을 되기도 깨지 몸을 되기도라는 이지 간지 니지 랍되고 그랬어 삼반남다가 랍고 그 쇼지 군이 빼마서 가고 총선스 나님은 있음들이나 콘도 빼마서 가고 총선스 콘도가 갈라고 했으면 더 콘도 부더 보모디 in the weekend the Yungres, which in the Karangiti, put the Bumula Pachi in it is Lavroches. Konzu Gonda Kalaso Hilasa.
Furthermore, when engaging with others in any context, in any manner, but in particular with the Dharma, it's imperative to have an excellent motivation, because having an excellent motivation to share the Dharma or to share of oneself, this has a real benefit for others. The impact on others is remarkably different when coming from a place of sincerity. So to give an illustration, the family I'm staying with, it's a husband and wife. He's Catholic, she's Muslim. And so we have spent some time conversing. And my English is a little broken, but I do what I can. But whatever I can.
Very broken. Not little, very broken, my English.
So with this very broken English of mine, I've been trying to converse with them. But despite the limitations of my broken English, I know benefit is coming to them. And why? Because I'm communicating or interacting with them with a good motivation, a sincere, genuine motivation. And so I can tell the beneficial impact my words are having on them. And they've shown this through their actions. They've said, this weekend our children are coming. Please talk to them about the things you have been talking to us about. Talk to them in the way that you've been talking to us. We'll cook for you. And then you please eat with our family and talk and engage with our children. So therefore I know that because of the quality of my motivation, my words have a beneficial impact on them. That's what can.
그래서 딘저 간지 먼저 당한주 넘버 3주 취치기였으라. 그래서 만체 인기래. 아니 간지 넘버 3주 취치기 지금 뭐네. 삼번 남다 제거야지. 삼번 남다 그 마치나 넘버 차이면 왔더라 간지. 밀 삼번 남다 그 로고 마치나. 단 넘버 차야 시도는 깔라가고 그러셨어. 넘버 1이 그 넘버 생긴 상황이죠. 넘버 1이 넘버 지금바나. 넘버 대부 전부 취진 넘버 지금바나. 아니 선반 남다 그 셴 로바치고도 왔어. 삼성 깔려였다. 두무도 요래 비마 파셔면 남겨다 지게제 셰단다 딘디 통온디 깔려하고 요다 이네야. 이 소보고니 아니 밀 로바치 와이나 페야디 소수셈을 뵌 거였어. 간지러. 삼반 남다 메나 근데 최착이요 말했어. 간지 최착이요 말했어. 대고심이 최착이요 말했어.
Yeah, I imagine all of you practice Buddhism, practice the Buddha Dhamma. But a key component of being a practitioner, an actual practitioner of the Buddha Dhamma, especially that of the Mahayana, is that one should have the support of an excellent motivation. In truth, to be a genuine Mahayana Buddhist is difficult if one lacks the support of an excellent motivation. So in our life, we do have many challenges, and particularly in our interactions with others. And at those times, with a motivation to benefit, it is imperative that we practice patience. And if one does so, there will be benefits for both yourself and the other person. So in truth, in the absence of the support of an excellent motivation, it's difficult for our endeavors to be called genuine Mahayana Dharma. That's all.
일단 간지 삼번 남다 제마도나 되니 남바산기비 최 제니 남바산기비 최래 슈니 론뉴슈 숨주 시우중갑주 송바이나야 자원니네 베게기 교타마통이 되니 용거도 왔어. 그래서 팜부러서 메세 troll아서로 지라다 메세 간자 남바산기비 최 론뉴슈 숨주 시우치라 남바산기비 최래 슈니 아니지 공용점에 야구 마토바이나 얘네 그든 트마송스러 먼저 미 메시지 나와라야 론유슈 숨주 뒤저 땅바이나 뒤저 쇼지 땅으로 와서러 이내야 샘을 자원이 마편 바이나 지 저섬 친중지 서버 친중지 곰 통인지 마차나 아니 남주 집이 그대로 주마송스러 인자 강 제버디 삼번 남다게 제바이나 아니 게시자다 뭐 소스 셈 교원레지 추 진행세 주요서리스러
There's a real danger that one can have been engaging in various forms of Buddhist practice for a number of years, maybe a decade, maybe several decades, maybe up to 50 years. But when one looks inside with honesty, one may well recognize my mind has not changed. This, if one finds oneself in such a situation, it's terribly sad. Such a waste of an incredible opportunity that one has had in this life. And the reason why one's endeavors have not borne the desired results is because of the lack of an excellent motivation. So I don't need to tell you, our time is valuable, our time is precious. But if all our effort and endeavors in the Dharma haven't led to much benefit to our mind, for example, the mind at least becoming a little more patient than before, then we are really not fulfilling the potential that the Dharma could bring into this very life for ourselves. Whereas on the other hand, if one does engage with the Dharma with an excellent motivation, the Dharma will bless your mind. That's okay.
다데다 다 삼번남다기 취 지야라야 취 장고 열어서 취 야부지 맞잖아 취 남다디 다 싱그마르서 안저다 남바체다 남바 다 남빌롬바 mambu 용기여레스 야व롱지 뒤다도 손대들이 남빌롬바 mambu 여레스 망치지게 출루 상월로도 직보서로지 대바치에 대야 대바치에 좀마도 원액이 직비다 아니 남비 최디 아니 출루 현다 민대위 개바죠 디 하모공에다 마무 쇼저로서 드수 테스팅 단 디기오 말았어 간진 남비 최라야 토모마이비 개주 가리여봐 남비 최디 최루 현다 직벌해도 직벌해면도 직벌 멤버이나 개바 가리여봐디 딩예버도 신고 걸었어요 소수 최루 간르 장 가르 장게 여봐이나야 최루 디기 토모마이비 개주 신바이나 아니 최루 텔라야 샘 딩기 개주 토모마이바지 여봐지 하거나 남바산 유치했다고야 토모마이비 개주 믹스어지 여봐디 소수 또 두바이나 당원이 샘 딩기 아니 대바디 레기로 왔어 대마도 갈가오라 들어와
To have an excellent motivation, this comes about or is born from having a good understanding of the Dharma, which itself comes from studying the Dharma. Studying the Dharma is imperative to understand it and thereby have one's motivation influenced by the Dharma or the motivation of the Dharma. His Holiness has commented in the past that there are many Buddhist countries, but all too many Buddhists in those countries are not so easy to distinguish from religious people of other faiths, just the general populace, the general religious populace. So many make the mistake of just relying on faith, so the faith that they gain from society or their birth, just relying on their faith and doing some minor efforts. But this is a all too common mistake, but a mistake that should be avoided. At the very least, anyone who calls themselves a Buddhist, identifies as a Buddhist, should understand what the unique qualities or aspects of the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha's teachings are, and at the very least know what they are, but ideally should cultivate them within. And if those unique qualities are cultivated, the unique qualities of the Buddha Dharma are cultivated within, then one's faith in the Buddha Dharma will be deep and transformative. That's what can.
일단 딘디기단 토모마인바기 넘버 산지 최고 토모마인바기 개체디 지 약부지 심발이야 장고요래 장발이야 람겐지 고요라서 람겐기다 개긴 야부지 고요라더라 그래다 랍사게 최소 만두다 진정강 세놈다 최소 그래서 백해심을 아니 최소 텔레 슝인기 아니 개긴 뼈다고 거기도 왔으라 아니 개긴 뼈다고 연에 팽말이 개투중원이 개긴이야 시구리하고 거기도 왔으라 개투중원이 개긴을 시구리하고다 개긴원이 개투sol이야 잠지 야부지 여비 토니 다 최딘 진경 배수지 지기마이나 야차 야담바 야우차겠지 응안주 통하다 응안주 메세나노야 최장 내려서 자사도 소리야. 먼저 자사도 소리야. 원에 추천 뉴스 잡시 소리지래다. 깔리자거스. 아니 개인도 저기 개주도 소리야. 딘디게 샤자요. 잠경요레스. 따도 치기요레스. 개주도 응원이 개인 실라온디 수수 속 나신치. 자치부 치기요레스. 가든 통나 샘띵니 구지요레스 가드이나 소스 샘 나와요 소스 게긴데 요레스 로 지 게긴라야 카타야 로다 게긴라야 마쿠바 치와다 테스팅 만드는 람산 페티 견주 치쇼죠 자원이 요마레스 딘지 메바인자 아니 트라스트라상이야 로니 치니 아니 페 원이 키워 담보 상기 메케버 페 야타마모 태용야디 규진 두술된 레기요레스로
The- uh, uh, uh. In order to understand the unique qualities of the Buddha Dharma, one needs someone who can train you. So you need a teacher, someone who can fulfill the role of teacher and guide one to recognize the qualities of the Dharma and cultivate them within. So one needs a teacher of excellent quality, but that alone is insufficient. The students also need to have a sincere, respectful attitude towards a teacher. In other words, they need to consider their teacher as a teacher. Then, with that interdependent relationship, where the qualities of the teacher's knowledge and the resulting inner qualities in their mind, so in other words, not just mere intellectual knowledge, but the Dharma has given birth in their mind or been born in their mind, independence on that from the side of the teacher, and the open, receptive quality of a student who considers the teacher, as a guide, then that relationship will go well. The love and the care from the teacher will be able to shine forth because the students will be open and receptive to their guidance. So where I've seen so many illustrations of this working well is in my monastery. So there, teachers and students are around each other day and night. And the teachers take close care of their students. They take the students' development into a knowledgeable person, a person with excellent qualities, as their personal responsibility. But from the side of the student, they reciprocate by being open and receptive through valuing their teacher. There's a Tibetan expression where they see their teacher as valuable as their own teeth. And how this would be experienced or expressed is that whenever the student sees their teacher, immediately their mind becomes light and joyous. They would never think to criticize their teacher or complain to or about their teacher. From their side, from the student side, they are open and receptive to their teacher. This is how their sincere respect is expressed. So therefore, independence on this interdependent relationship of the qualities of the teacher and the receptiveness, the sincere receptiveness and respect from the students, the relationship bears fruit, and that the student gives rise to the qualities that the teacher is guiding them to develop. That's okay.
Dadi kangi mezinangolaya ro lama gewishini tenchini mezin kewanza tosu nganzu shingyo resra enza nganzu do ngado jita dwali yoni nima chingis yan chikshe rosha grasra ne gyundengi yan chigle gyundengi yongi ani gegen tozo uni kushib kores sachimbu che kores sikur kores ra ani sosu ngone gegen ya sikur ya jiwana gegen ngone shasal legres ta gen da gedu para
Kuna gegen ngone
gedu ngone gegen ya sikur yobana kushib yobana gawo yobana gegen ngone gedu la gawo yungres ani gegen da gedu ni pe masibatni tumbu yungres damzik sama yungres ta di che nyamne chiya ge jujen gi ta gyugen yakshudi da kechishudi ikyanzo mancheri da lamram dili nye yorasi pina lama sorumachi kundeni sonju mamu shunyu yokirasi kaddu yina ane lama sorumachi sonju kaddu nana shenye tenzu ko masongachi peshi yomarwas ra 그래서 개체부 차관자 개체부 쇼 차관자 디순고라서 디하고 그랬어.
The relationship with the teacher and the student is not so different from that of being a family, in that the relationship should be close and caring and tender. So from the side of the teacher, of course, there's the requirement for their own training to have undergone their own training and given rise to qualities within. But again, as I said a moment ago, that is insufficient. It's insufficient to have even an excellently qualified teacher. The other part of the dependence arising is the attitude from the side of the students that they have a relationship of sincere respect, not just as a superficial display, but an openness, a receptiveness towards the teacher. When these two come together, a teacher who's qualified and students who are open and respectful and trusting, then the most important cause for the Dharma to be born within one's heart has been achieved. So you, I imagine most of you are old students of Lama Zopa. So you know from your years of attending his teachings, in every teaching, this was a point he emphasized. He emphasized the importance of the relationship with one's spiritual teacher. So this is something you know, and it is of crucial importance. That's okay.
들다 특히 계신분들서 간지 먼저 찌당 글로종 진바이나 그 찌당 글로종들이 비 냉가로 시나 단 디기어라서 로종 셴바츠서 베는 맹 로종이난자 아니 지난자 그 시나 디거라다 시나 디거라다 난추디 비기 심바 삼지긴 디금다스라 난추 이 가르고르서니 난추 장 고든디 소수 셈바야고 차야 되라다스 셈바야고 차스는디 셈난기 지 뉴무 독섬 아니 용을 줘야다 데니지 잠인지 잔주고 셈을 써봐 또머니 또비 셔러를 써봐 딘지기 아니 또비 용데 콘데 패야게 쳐도 난주 장거를 만도 셴바 난주 장 셴바 그거 셴바 제요 말았어 때 딘지 용야라 아니 라미 쳔르세 산지 좀 된디는 뭐 규비기다 지 아니 쳔르비 규바디 소수 셈라야 주고요레스 소수 산지 좀 된디는 뭐 규비 쳔르 주사기 이 람가로디 소수 자유라마 코란 균을 용야레 모두 람가 셴바 지요 말았어 된 아니 야갈 개바이는다 벽 개바이는다 용수 조박이 지규치는 송여를 모두디 아니 미 가시지기 송자 딘이 싸우니 레몬도 들어 간지 젠라부디 아니 추다마스는 비기 마 소수 나가 용사가 람가로디 아니 자빌라미 균이 용교레스 테모도 요마레스 셴바 요마레스로 이제 딘지다 규바로디 야고지 마냐나 아니 젠라비 용사든 가르고도스로 가나 가르샤고 소소도 경험하고 하면서 가즈 장바이네요 그냥 미셀 장바이네요 아니 샘난게 아니 지금 대샤 샤당가게 차도로 소바 메카시 슈치를 줘주는 신고도 하세요 그가르스나 죄야고지 맞아 아니 신이 된서 야고메 어 딘지기 때문에 인구여라서
in society, in general life, when what various topics that you study in your education or in your hobbies, whether it's things that maybe you learned in university, architecture, medicine, mathematics, whatever it may be, for the vast majority of fields, it's sufficient in one's place of education to become educated, knowledgeable. That is sufficient. It's the goal of most educational institutions for their students to graduate as educated people. But in the context of the Buddha Dharma, the situation is markedly different. Mere knowledge is insufficient. No matter how learned one is, if that knowledge remains merely or only intellectual, that is insufficient. What has to happen to fulfill the purpose of acquiring that knowledge, the purpose of the Buddha Dharma, is that knowledge needs to be integrated into your very way of thinking. In other words, the knowledge needs to arise in your mind. The arisal of the Dharma within your mind is the purpose of a Buddhist education. This is how the three poisons are overcome. It is the only way the three poisons can be overcome. It's only through cultivating the Buddha Dharma within that one can overcome the afflictions. And for this to come about, one has to receive the blessings of the Buddha, of the entirety of the lineage. And the only way one can receive such blessings is the only way one can receive the blessings of the Buddha is through his representative in your life. And that is your spiritual teacher. That is the only way. The Buddha and the entirety of lineage of realized beings throughout the generations, throughout the millennia, they aren't directly accessible to us, but they are accessible through our spiritual teacher. He is their representative in our lives. This we need to recognize. The only way to receive the blessings of the Buddha and his teachings is through his representative. This is how what could otherwise be a merely intellectual knowledge can be guided. We can be guided by our teacher so that that intellectual knowledge, as we are gathering it, is at that same time arising within us. If one's knowledge remains merely intellectual, for sure the afflictions will not be overcome. In fact, it's quite likely they will increase. One's pride will increase, jealousy of others will increase. The opposite of the intent of the Dharma will happen. That's okay.
Tirvinzada kanji gegin yaguchi koguyore. Ani the getu gemba tsoge, getu saba tsola, never the champion chegodas. Benata hayage chuzoke, soon look at the door, the getu gemba tsoge, ani in the Teriling getu saba tsunche and chin, saba tso, and it tabujaya, saba tsolea, champion chia. And getu saba tsoge, getu gemba tsolea, kushevchia. The D and it chuzo senata, gomba senata, the zola pe massive catching with chagores. Ra. Want to tasa dojin by now. Gemba tsoge, saba tso dawaja, saba tsolea, tatoche, saba tsolea, kargogdura, tana dulo yanjini, any gamba tsoge, any searching, saba tsola jagores. Dulote, Kala soya, desate, you so to Siondi, any Gombadi, and Mintuni, any Gingon Chetugors, Yawachagores. On the Sava Leondi, Gambatsover, Taudoda, Neshuda, Tindiche Devana, Choso Tunamia, Yidro Sigmaris. Ro, any Sava Tsogi, Gambatsolea, any Chendonda, Kushema Chivana. Gamba the Sabe Paragi, Delam di Yavuchag Mares. 디 마샤디 추조드네 가도 있는 요달리기도 왔어. 게투 게임 받던 사바니 파라레 디 간다 차온디 가도 있는 요달리기도 왔어. 다살 딘디 싸우니요 말았어. 게임버 속에다 게투 사발랭인데 몽비기 아니 다산디 단 나올로니 쟁이 연용 쟁이 게시슈디 싸워서 차가서 싸워서 빼마서 다보자 그랬어. 싸워서는 다 gemba 쪽을 남된 지금 gemba 쪽 까르는 데는 안서 레트워스 gemba 쪽을 90 그랬어. 딘디 지원디 겐션 파라 제와디나 야부슈 레고레스. 나도 미 투고 멘트는 로고디 아니 딘디 델람디 하장 계정 시작하고 왔어.
For the for the relationship with a spiritual teacher to go well, the teacher one needs both the teacher to be an excellent teacher, and thereby with many inequalities cares well for the students. And as mentioned, the other part of the interdependency is that the students need to have sincere respect towards the teacher, an openness towards the teacher. Then the relationship will go well. But this process, and this is important to understand, this process is not limited to the relationship between the spiritual teacher, the Lama, and their students. It should be replicated between all the students. So for example, let's take the situation here at Hayagriva. Those of you who are senior students, you have a responsibility to care for those who are newer. You have that responsibility, and you should embrace that responsibility, take that up. And likewise, those newer students should have a respectful attitude towards those who are more senior, to those more senior students. So this is very similar to the relationship that I've been describing between the teacher and student. It's not that the senior students are the teachers to the junior students, but there is this relationship, this interdependent relationship of respect and appreciation from the newer students, and a process of taking care of responsibility for the newer students. And what I'm describing here is precisely how the monasteries work. They're the teachers, they take care of their students. Their students are their responsibility, and they take up that responsibility. From the side of the students, they have sincere respect for their teachers, and they take care of their teachers. They will make sure, make clothes for the teacher, cook for their teacher, clean for their teacher. And in turn, when that younger student, they themselves become older and they become senior students in the monastery, they will have their own students who care for them in that way. So this process naturally passes on through the generations. And in this way, the monasteries have great harmony, and the flourishing of the Dharma in the minds of the monks there is really quite exceptional. This is a key component to the success of the monasteries, and the Dharma centers need to emulate this. To put it slightly differently, if in a Dharma center there's jealousy, there's competitiveness, how can one expect the Dharma center to flourish? It's not going to happen. So therefore, those who are more senior students, you need to take care of with an approach of seeing the newer students as valuable, as precious. And from the side of the newer students, you should with sincerity have respect for those who are more experienced. And in this way, there will be harmony and flourishing within the Dharma center. So this way of interacting it's of great importance, and to develop this as the very way of life within the Dharma Center, this is really incredibly important. That's okay.
이 가진 쇼기 있으려나 이마이나 간즈 잡질라마 소르무시 요르와스 간즈 테즈 마드리나 아니 룸부치레야 칼라블람데 슈사 요르와스 다 룸부치 슈메디 다 게투 gembatsoda 아니 게갱 ngone 야부지 마세나 아니 추조도서 야체 야다마 깡가 튀기러스 원 samsang 샘드로 아 라마 소버를 붙이다 라마 이시 혼나만이 소지 콜레 슈이케요라서 투리 슈지 케니 추조만 부슈 쭈요라 이따 디멘트니 망바 잡질라마 소버를 붙이기 양식 표현디 아니 추조된 하말이 아니 야르 드로니 아니 양식된 추조는 덴데슈도 와나 다디 티고그라스는 소더라 당원이 나라는 요도 장장체 창문매체 추조도 돌아와나 추조 찍찍 말해 또 만부여라더라 사막이 딘디 제야래도 왔더라 gembatsoge gerusawa 용인 소리야 람덴다 아니 장정나 gerusawa 소임베네야 gembatso야 부십치 아니 이치치 두 수저와나 대자시 자다만 주존 생경치 투그레스 디 마지와나 다 신은 갈에 가보러스라
So in the past, Lama Zopa used to take care of all his centers and his students, give advice and guidance. And we saw that where the relationships in the center were poor, where they struggled to fulfill Rinpoche's advice, which would always include advice around harmony, the Dharma Center would struggle. The Dharma Center would not flourish. As you know, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, they founded many Dharma centers over the decades. Some of them flourished, some of them struggled. A key component for the success of the Dharma Center was the harmony within the Dharma Center. And the harmony of the Dharma Center is dependent on the relationships between the students who are more senior in the sense of being more experienced, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and therefore should be in that role to be able to set an example and to guide. And if between themselves, as well between them and the newer students, there isn't harmony, those centers cannot flourish. And the position we find ourselves in now is we all have a deep yearning for Rinpoche's reincarnation to once again enter our Dharma centers, to once again enter our lives and enter our Dharma centers. But if within our Dharma centers there isn't harmony, that will serve as a major impediment, a major obstacle to us being able to recognize Rinpoche's reincarnation, and he thereby re-enter our lives. But if the Dharma centers are flourishing, firstly, they'll be flourishing because of the harmony within the centers. And therefore, Rinpoche's reincarnation will be recognized and re-enter our lives, and thereby fulfilling this heartfelt wish that we all share. Lasso.
텔다디 난주 참 찍바로 왔어라. 남은 소버로 지기다 도마로 왔어. 남은 소버로 지 공시디 돌랑 난주기 tel lega chego gro asra padere samta nam sobarum ji gonji tola ani ngan samolo la yang gen yo bachi chagyanza ani kejati ta lever esra ngi khani keje le goya do di 소스 샘노야 다 딘디지 마시나 몽바야 우차서 말이 삼비게 소르나지 여바인자 아니 이제 시기스로 어도 양아 셴바키 말했다 간지 셴바키 말했어
We all consider ourselves students of Sopa Rinpoche. So therefore, I'm saying this because this is something we should think about and recognize what I'm presenting here that is our responsibility. So this is why I'm raising it, so that we all become aware of it and take up this responsibility. That's all.
세윙아 제네시 추조 되기요레스로 나 추조 간르지 그 자만티와지 네수코나 야세자탄 바셈나 아카 삼성게 소르와티 영인지 인스로 추조지 야구차고요 바나 야세자탄 바 가우 영인지 로 아니 뒤따도 뭐놈 가르게 왔으나 아니 산지기 때문에 달바쇼스 로 산지기 때문에 잠불리는 아주 달바이나 디 저기 아니 잠불링기다 아니 미로 저비 소차 참을로야 펜버마도 never 메바인자 아니 산지기 때문에 달바쇼스 same thing 뭐남디 야구요레스 가주스기 비기다 지 아니 최소도서 차수보다 야구지 여바지 고원디 아니 same thing 가오요레스 간지 소소 산지기 때문에 샤자 여반자 대바 도도메비 대바 여반자 산지기 때문에 가와 달와이나요 아니 소소로 여반나신 소소로 여반나신기 소르와tin 안솔 요레스로 안사마 얘기래 요레스로 먼저 장관함이 때문에 아니 초 콘도 달와쇼스 뭐남지하고 그래 장관함이 때문에 가와 달와이나 아니 샘나 신도는 가트르 끼기요레스 로 아니 제르무치기 때문에 진교치기 추조 찍이요 봐이나 아니 샘딩이 아니 가오잉 거레스 추조 찍 투쇼로 봐이나 샘딩이 샘은 나살레기 거레스 로 딜다 딜이 모두 셈아 가이 마레스 로
My home is Chenrezig Institute, but so there I know the situation better. But when I hear about other Dharma centers and how things are going, if the Dharma center is in harmony, I know it's flourishing, and this brings great joy to my mind. But if I hear that there are problems and there's conflict, this then really compassion arises in my mind for those beings who are suffering and not able to experience the benefits of the Dharma that's around them. So a prayer that I make, and I'm sure that you make too, is that the Buddha Dharma flourishes in our world, that whomever the Buddha Dharma touches, only benefit follows for them. For this to happen, the centers where the Dharma abides need to flourish. For them to flourish, they need to be harmonious or in harmony. So when I hear that a Dharma center is in harmony, so much joy comes to my mind because I know of the benefit that comes to everyone who interacts with that Dharma center. Certainly the regular students, the senior students there, but also those who just come by now and again. They all will experience such benefit to their mind because the Dhamma will be able to touch them. And then the precious teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa that are presented throughout our centers, they will be fulfilling their potential of benefiting beings. So when I hear that a situation is good in the Dharma center, this is the reason why such joy arises in my mind. That's okay.
딘다 테링 안조 조지티 토 케지 셰고라스라 당안조 조지토 하티 안조 조지토로디 데버드위아타 동거세기 타블럼 넘버 산지위 쇼나기 타블럼 칸리미 토라 아니 케지 셰고르세 티르로
The topic that that I've been asked to talk about tonight is how through the Buddha Dharma can we overcome problems and find happiness. So this is really what you asked me to talk on, and why are we all together. Russell.
인자다 this laondi ani dewa doyata dungar seyas laondi dedu ke keje legyorasra devati dewa kharre dunga kharre sedi yungroda ina ngazu hobto gasina dewa ngoma singejda dunga ngoma singejda peshe milaita yong marasra chedangi imbayina ya pasevuroji sebana ani devas lawandi devati niche godasra ani sem devachi da lu devachi ni ta yungudo asra nanzu lusem ni yonza lusem ni la tembi ani deva mandrava ni yasha jadam yungu yores tenanjingi lusem ni la tembi dunghara mandra yungu yoras ra.
When hearing that the topic is overcoming problems and finding happiness, then the thought will come, what are problems? What is happiness? So I imagine in answer to the question, everyone has an idea of what is meant by happiness, what is meant by suffering. But to know it clearly, we look at from where the two places from where both happiness and suffering arise. Happiness arises in dependence on the material world as well as the mental world, the inner world. Likewise, suffering too arises in dependence on there's different ways to say it, the physical world, the material world, or the body. So, suffering too arises in dependence on the material world as well as independence on the mental world, the inner world. Lasso.
디지디게 당한주 남규 내가 제단에 상당당에 도스 심죽 제바나 류그 데와 주비아지다 류그 동arse야 지토라 베전체데 마도 지 셈기 디기 주비아다 셈그 동arse야 토라야 아니 상무슈 땅그 메교로지 요레스라 여러분이 딱 봤습니다. 오늘 간 제바시는 딘디 차게 요라스라.
If we look deeply, we'll recognize that mainly where we strive to experience happiness and overcome problems is to do with the physical world, such as our body, and pay less attention to the mind as a source of happiness and the source of problems. So His Holiness often mentions this, how the overwhelming focus is on the body or the material world. That's all.
Tilda, the Luke Degi Duondi, Luke Devadriata, Dungar Sayagi, Tapshi, Tanganzo, Mus Tong Deadi, Se Nemel so Druet, Tap Kanji Benjer Drueti, Benjer Soyat Red Asra, the Benjer Switch in it, and Devadi, the Luke Devachi Remado, Sem Deva Yoyadi. 신도는 깔까고 차기로 왔어. 깔까고 차고res. 다 벤조여 봐이나 팔아야고 사투 그래. 둘러야고 간투 그래. 대사야고 소투고요래. 다 되죠? 아니 류 되기 주야기 탐남지레 마도 샘기 되기 에 아니 샘기 시대 디톤에 라세디 신 깔까고 차고res.
If we look then at where people put most of their energy and attention, that on the material or on the body, we can maybe look at the pursuits for wealth or financial comfort, maybe we could say, or financial not having financial problems rather than wealth. So having a lack of sufficient financial resources. This is a very common way that people strive to overcome problems and achieve happiness. So to have sufficient financial resources. But the truth is, even when one achieves sufficient financial resources, whilst happiness will follow, it's not necessarily going to be a source for mental happiness, but rather a source for physical happiness. For example, by having sufficient financial resources, one won't struggle to have delicious and nutritious food, to have a nice clothing, a lovely home. All of this can be taken care of if one has sufficient financial resources. But this is just a basis upon which physical happiness is experienced. Lasso.
Terda, ta penjo drip ni, penjo chim chawon di, tani, mimam bustobu chagorasra. Bustobu nyokra mambu chagore, tubo mambu chagore, ani, dindi yungu yorasta kanji. Ta pena, ni mitse rojima, ta peshan, nga peshan, ta yakshin saresra. Ni mitse rojima na, nge penjo che lega chun che manis. Chunjung kone lo choksom ne nga tawa che ani pecha jang tene tasa landro susu payusha to chindro penjo do la lega che manya de ne pecha nga zo dina ruru che nga zo dorwai na semba kyushu ro de pecha nga inkires right ta di khareres na yunzi semba kemo do asra ko samlo di mambo ke 가서 다 니마 그 태워서 삼lot 마다만치 안 소소소 가리 그 매버여서 디톨이야 로종로치 아니 소소 관심 받이 밀라 아니 지파 팬도 제 삼lot다 다른 것도 조대바인자 셈바기 우차인 길 삼고도스라
Perhaps either if you yourselves are wealthy or you know wealthy people or from what you observe in society, they have a real abundance of material wealth, but they're not the happiest of people. They most likely have an abundance of conflicts in their life, quite narrow-minded, focused on really the materialism. And perhaps when one observes that way of thinking, that way of their mental state, not so inspiring. The family I know best is my own family, so let's talk about that a little bit. So with my family, I ordained young and to study Buddha Dharma. And this is how I've spent my life, studying the Buddha Dharma and then sharing the Buddha Dharma. So I am possibly the poorest in my family materially. My financial resources are not like the rest. But I have to say, I think in my family, I'm the happiest of everyone. And so if one asks us, why is that? Why am I at materially the most impoverished, but am the happiest? Well, if we were to look deeply, there are many reasons to point to, but just to say at a brief level, a course level, when one has come to understand what is truly valuable, what really is in life, what is important, and has developed the means to achieve that. In other words, when one has truly come to recognize or truly come to cultivate a wish to be of benefit, and then is able to act in ways that bring benefit, one is happy. One is living a life of meaning and of purpose. This is why, through cultivating the Dharma, happiness, real happiness follows. That's all.
El dinza razu dachi sayan thoyam bebu da chi penjo bebu yoba tsamgi ta degi drip thu meba ta siwu ro chagora ta zambule na la ya zambule na penjo chesa ye lomba tuzo na la tambushewa na pustobu mambu chagora sra sembo pustobu mambu chagora sra 아니 롬바디 벤조 차원디 단단 통되거든 롬바디 벤조 야긴 종원디 아니 롬바디 기타 도든 천자 소야로 소바 아니 마음타야 아 아니 간지 딘디 차로다 간지 딘디 아니 팀 마무스 하장 팀 마무스 온디 아니 메셀야 란싱 피 부스토브 차기도 하더라 자비 팀 매너다 아니 다 갈카워데니야 팀 하장게 담자와이나 아니 몇 부스토고 차기도 란싱 부스토고 차기도 하더라 아니 춘중군이 부군이 빼 아니 샘버 부스토고 차 대대팀이 몸이 연구요라서 그 두사마 가서 வர다 지다 총다 벤줄된 제와 요구를 해도 하더라
You may well have recognized this too, that in the parts of the world where we can say this is a wealthy nation, or rather than this is a wealthy nation, or this is a wealthy area where the material conditions are quite outstanding. When we look there, we aren't blown away by the fact that the wealthiest areas are filled with the happiest of people. This we do not see. Rather, what we see are the need for weapons and guards to protect what they have. And on a nation state level, a lot of this wealth then is spent on weaponry to protect the nation state. And not only that, to project power elsewhere. This is quite remarkable. Not only then is there this expression of wealth through weaponry, but also through laws to protect what they have, laws to ensure that they stay wealthy. And to enforce those laws, then they need an army of enforcers, lawyers, soldiers, police force, and so forth, to ensure that what it has been, this material abundance that has been gained, is protected and thereby maintained. This is not the sight. Happiness. That's all.
nganzu ge nga ta gege di ngima nga di sungu yesra gengi yansi jora gengi yansi di matsan hajang gyu maimba matsan hajang chubu maimba matsan dindi jilaya ki gogdos gengi di sungu des
Mitel kyopo kyokyang, yamene mitel dring.
matsan gyu matsan dindi jil matsan chubu ke baina yabu yo mares gengi matsan hajang gyu le ke baina yanchi benju kangan techen sayan thoya mandan chen ani chöche matu ya nyenga yores matsan chubu le ke baina yan benju lo go khorni ani benju shawan son chen ani chöche ya ya gasha ingures inza matsan dindi jile ya ani ke nga manam kya gayes gengi takba disong gures nima ta sozo kars lo hajang chunjo lo nyushu tsarang kaptula da matsan chubu jile ke baina de kibu yosara samgora ngonne dospa te ondi ani matsan chubu dozola kanga shu dosara rensam da toksen da ani ta konzola magiwa shu dosara da matsan kyo dosda ya saya toya kanga men kanga shi tevi yorata ding ding do jimbaina ene chö che yowa ane sosu lö che de toya ene nganzu geng de songo dingwani insaresra
something my own teacher has told me is that the very best type of family to be born into is a family that has sufficient material wealth. Sufficient wealth, not a good word in English, sufficient material resources, enough to get by without any problems. That is the ideal family to be born in. If one is born into a family that is truly destitute, one will struggle to get by, and then that will be a problem for you to be able to engage in the Dharma. But likewise, if one is born into a family that is wealthy, many problems, many obstacles will arise in terms of one being able to engage in the Dharma. And we can see this in wealthy families. There's competitiveness, there's jealousy, there's not often harmony. The ideal family to be born into is a family that has sufficient material resources so that the family gets by okay, but not one that is wealthy or impoverished. That's all. That's all.
그래서 간진 돌드나 아니 먼저 벤저도 고기요레스라 그냥 주주 야슈디 주주 만슈디 아니 벤저부터 땅샤바이나 벤저부터 땅샤바이나 아니 셈바 포스토 부차야기 닝가 마요 용구요서레스 간지 그러면서 dom겨바이나 마 용구요서레스 벤저 주 고기요레 이내야 대단냠도 아니 지 소절이야 셈바디 기부샤야기 셈바 소주기야기 로 추구토니 비기다지 마리과다 아니 차단이 무다 소바 드소 뇽타야기 탑시대 드즈지텐체 아니 추데스 장바이나 야시야 담바더니 메시디 기부차야기 제와 망인구요서레스
아마 친구 그렇게 게 차로 세 그래. 자, 사포기에서. Okay. In brief, it needs to be acknowledged that we do all require a certain standard of material comfort. This is fine. But if one is wealthy, or the mind is quite dominated, I don't say obsessed, but quite dominated with gaining more wealth, it's very likely one is going to be quite narrow-minded. One's focused on materialism. And that will be where one's energy goes, physical, mental energy goes. If on the other hand, one is genuinely not so materialistic, one would then have the time and the mental capacity, as well as probably the interest to focus on what is important, the inner world, cultivating the Dharma within. Therefore, being less materialistic really is an important characteristic for happiness. That's okay. If you have some questions, then please feel free to ask. But not too difficult. Oh no, it's okay if they're difficult.
Yeah, did that. Kanji Tinza number Sanji Chu Tony, any Deki Judan Roti, Chu Tolia, Kazu, same day to Vaina, Chu Tolia, Kazu, same day to Vaina, Sam Nangi, Chadan Yumu there, New Year's. Sam Nangi Chadan Yumu Kazu, Nyon Roga Tsugi. 바페부 연구하래서 셈벌 한신이 기부차고 그래서 셈 기부차고나 벤저 연나 기부요래 벤저 메나 기부요 도도로 들으셨어
Having the great fortune to have met the Buddha Dharma, you have the opportunity to cultivate it within your mind. What I can guarantee is, to the extent that any person cultivates the Dharma in their mind, to that extent, their afflictions will weaken and dissipate. It is the presence of the Dharma in the mind that leads to happiness. How so? Through the weakening of the afflictions. Therefore, whether one is materially comfortable, wealthy, or struggling to get by materially, to the extent that one cultivates the Dharma within, one's mind is at peace. One's mind is at ease. Again, because the more the Dharma is within one's mind, the less the afflictions are able to disturb our peace of mind, our happiness. That's all.
그래서 남바산 집이 추억 나올라 간주 남주 이야기 땅 이야기 다 링람 탑시디 약슈디 산점된데 추억 나오여서리스 그럼 다 셔럽 남주 미 남주 푸드 중에요 아니 이야기 탑람디 아니 산점된데 추억 나온다 연구열에서 따라 다 셴발라 패시하고 있게다 ngada shingme de imba ta dille ba na ranga zu gi nyogda da gusto bu yoya da yonso ba di namju mandan namju chongda ni nganzu gusto bu chaga wares ro nganzu nelu mashibi wangi nganzu gusto bu chaga wares ta nelu
Siruttama Yanka again?
nelu mashibi wangi 내루 유지 내루 먼저 지 하고 와이나 삼투 와이나 아니 샘버디 고향 보고 그랬어요.
But the Buddha, when he taught, he encouraged that his students utilize their intelligence. They think for themselves, they analyze, they use their intelligence. This is perhaps a unique feature of Buddhism, the encouragement for us to think for ourselves, use our intelligence. And to the extent that one does in relation to the Dharma, more Dharma will arise in one's mind. To the extent that one does not use one's intelligence thinking about the Dharma, there'll be less Dharma in one's mind, and therefore one's mind will have less happiness, be less at peace, less at ease. And the key point within this context of using one's intelligence is to understand how things actually are, understand the actual way things are. So both in terms of understanding reality, but not just the ultimate, the conventional too. Understand how things actually are. To the extent that one does, one's mind is spacious and at ease. To the extent that one does understand reality, one's mind isn't swayed by disturbing emotions, but is spacious and open. That's all.
이제 될 샤샤고 쓰라. 이전에 인구 깔까이 이제 저 얘기 말았어. 한국에 지어자라.
So then if you have no questions, then we can conclude there for tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so questions?
If someone
I think you can take this. Yandoji.
You spoke of the interest in materialism over interest in the Buddha Dharma. How do you help cultivate an interest in the Buddha Dharma if the interest is in materialism?
Ini ngato nangche la donang kandres kia gide. Pena dantarang nga chi ngompo. Ngato nangsem dang chi ngompo. Ngato peljor la sopa. De la donang yore. Yine de donang de kandres nungwa so ye dang tso kandres nangche la donang so togi yana.
nganzo pyo jingbai na rwa ani gomba la thi do jangju majaman ani thinga shat cheers
So perhaps we should do like we do in Tibet, send you off to the monastery where you have to study, otherwise you get beaten. So maybe that's what we need to do.
and so the reason me mambu ji rwa nganzo ngo ya ji se thong bu shu chin ro che ngo ya ji ro chin ta pe sayan thong ta ngam pe na Australia ro ji ba na ta chi sayan thong ya di and then so karin dende ta damya damka di mang ra yo ma do nyong ra che ma do sro ta din di cha yo da in ba na ya ta di gi nganzo deba tsum gu yo ma ro sro deba ro ji khang go ma tan da chi go ta din ni deba kin ma tsam ni ka nga che ni ani kha shi gi ani shi ni gom gya ya la ya do na che de din yung gu yo ra sro te ta kha shi gi 대부분이 로니 동나요야 인디인 걸도 쭉 직소소 믹스에 강아지 김매와나 믹스에 강아지 김매와나 아니 난추기 대부분이 로나 근데 자오로 시주비 아니 개범망부기 아니 대고 되고 싶은 티어레스 인디 is 로토바나 원이 이 지거다 릴람디 균센 시제 조직 통토바나 딱 원에 셈라 난주로 동나요에 그게 야슈디 딘사레스로
Sepul kosong ini kerang la jua chung chung ya. Konso nge dompa tongi yope, konso melong yope.
통구열 열
Okay. Yeah, because the dragya tokla jua chik lebsong dene konso pelse di hako kide. Okay, tuche. Ini kerang leng yapkin. In this country, in our world, so many people waste their life following one pursuit after another. This never-ending striving to accumulate material possessions, accumulate experiences. This we can observe in others and in ourselves. Here we should recognize that no matter how much one strives to achieve this, experience that, our desires are never satiated. This we need to recognize for ourselves. This makes a big difference. Moreover, if you have time, read Dharma books, such as books by His Holiness, and read them not like a novel. Read them thinking about the meaning, reading the key points again and again. And in this way, you'll see the relevance of what's being taught in your life. And you'll come to recognize that there is something of far greater value than mere experiences and possessions worthy of one's energy. That's all.
당한즈 치 무볼랑 고 코사로 저라다 셈 양사기 치 무볼 지어라서 안디 심주 야구 제와나 먼저가 원래 공예진기 잘라서지 망체 차금도 왔어 공예진 니버도 고야도지 잘라지 망체 차금도 왔어
Mm.
아니 벤당 안주도지 맞다 안주 다치 마켓 슈퍼마켓 전부 듣는 남로원디 자자 고추 공부 안주도 먹고 있겠냐래서 아 안주 이나 자자 고추 고고 땅 안주 단 먹어야 되는 데도 고야지에 매주 단 아니 매주 같이 오래 인공 에다 가서다 자다와니 파상 파르도 아니 내가 보다 버달레 자베마니마 비 통가는로 아니 잘라 초매교로 든지 쉬운 용도 왔어 먼저 뒤져도 든지 저질래 망치 땅에도 아니 잘라 는 돌로 도지 뭐는 니마 딱 제고 잡고야 제고 마야와는 뭐지 잘리 자그래 상수 서로 든지 딜리요 통선 다디 좀원에 당한조가 캔도 쉬어졌어 먼저 저 메시코라라 소다치 선도치 그걸데네 디 녀브로야 로즈 아니 디 만디와도 사니 문더스라 미 마무지라야디 이린 그한테 사니 칸바이나 군저 아니 아메드즈 직 삼그레도 삼신 초메요 디 상당도 왔어라 다들 사마 디 소스도 졸라도 소데샤스
When you go home later, walk in your home, look around, and ask yourself the simple question in relation to all that you see. How much of this do I really need? How much of this, if it were to magically disappear or it never come into my life, how much of this would actually have mattered? From my own experience, if I go into a supermarket, there's so many things in there. Vast majority, I can happily go through this life never experiencing. I have no need for it. But how people in society live their life is usually Monday to Friday. They work hard, takes their physical energy, occupies their mind, perhaps out of working hours, their mind is still on work. Then on the weekend, what do? Spend what they earned, buying this, buying that, trying to experience this, experience that. Now ask yourself, is this really the best use of my life? And just a single illustration, which I think is, from my perspective of how I've lived my life, I just find remarkable. The wardrobes people have at home, the need to wear different clothes every day, the fear of what others may well say if one does not. This is really strange. Clothing is there to protect one from the weather, to cover what needs to be covered. That's about it. But all this time and energy that goes into one's appearance is such a waste. Really, from my perspective, obviously, yeah, different background as an ordained person, but I have a wardrobe, and I'm wearing it. I'm wearing most of it right now, and that's enough. How can it be said I need much more? So have a look, and it is quite startling. Less again.
엔단 디가나 생각해보게
Semkare, Gunda, Semkare.
알아도 마음부터 거라서 공침보 근데 동서들 라스 녀도 거라 딘디로 치워다 딘디 마음부 쇼치 다 원에 진도 참았다 고바치에 메죠 고바사원이 메죠 때려 주주 쇼다 엔주 쇼다 메세트롤라다 지겨라다 이내야 땅가서 까야 까투야신 갈카오레다스라 이메는 딩안도 아니 Geshe Shegwaya di Beki Chimureshas. Geshe Shebana, Michiki, Michigla Pentowana, Pandora,
Die tamange harmason kitsushe kelchempore mi chik pen giore. Di salpo gosong, stig gosong, dundak netange harmason.
Chizan, the Nanzu Tizu Trolla Tanga Yobi, the Netsujora, the Nanzu Geshe Tishego.
Ah,
Mi Su Kowana, Michigla Pembana, Migala Pembana, Pandora,
course. No, a further component to look at is in terms of what things, whether what you have and you recognize that you need, does it need to be that expensive? Not only is it how much one's got, but does one need things to be of a particular price point, such as brand and so forth? Is that really necessary? And watch your mind to see how one very quickly, even on achieving something that you've longed for, you long for the newer model, the more expensive one. And see how that disturbs your mind. And one again needs to continue to work, continue to save, to buy the newer version. And then when you have it and you cherish it so and you're trying to protect it, look at how it worries your mind. Then go back to what I said a moment ago. Do you really need it? So talking like this, hearing what I'm saying, this I have no doubt will benefit some people. It is, though, and it also needs to be said, difficult to change. It is difficult to change. One has been conditioned throughout your life by society and your family and so forth, and still pressured by society and one's family and so forth. So there are real challenges. This is recognized. But hearing an alternative way to think and looking for oneself, really the benefit comes from this. That's all.
So, dedications on page 8.
Lama Sanje Lujuli, Roa Chijam Mage, Heye Salam Gobara Shu, Rumboche Maje Banam Ke Guruchi, Dewa Nyamba Mebai, Kone Kundum Bewara Shu.
Page 9, the prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, with the wish-granting, wishful, inexorable, source of every single benefit and happiness of this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. The prayer for the swift return of Lama's Rinpoche. Give us teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and practical Buddhists, victorious Lord, Son, Father, and Sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of human and lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holy and sturdy communities, precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, reward the armor of patience and courage. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings who suddenly depart into peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the spirituals, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of the reincarnation swiftly in glory for fortunate disciples. Lord, my favorite times and Lord of Dharma, when accordance with the various dispositions of those who institute, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice and segregated tradition, essence of Buddhist teachings, foremost and holy Dharma to you for us supreme, we make this prayer of supplication. Love, please, with God. Thank you very much, Geshe. That is part one.